I was once a member of the community online, Twitter, Instagram, all that sort of thing for the Xbox community, I suppose, gaming in general. I briefly wrote for a couple different gaming websites. They were like independent ones. Actually helped start one, and I think they're still out there. I haven't checked in a long time, but I actually had a decent following on Twitter for a while there. I was actually a member of Twitter since it started in 2008, and then had a second profile that started like a year later when the other one just got too cluttered. But had a pretty decent following and talked politics, video games, and when Gamergate happened, like everything really blew up, became a big member of that community. There was just a lot going on at the time. But I'm an Xbox fan. Everybody knows that. I always have been, literally since 2005 when I got my first job just to buy a console, and it was the original Xbox. I've got no problem calling out the Xbox community or other fans when they act stupid. And I did this many times during the Xbox One era, between like 2013 and say 2016, 17, whatever it was that I finally decided to quit social media. She got tired of the toxicity of it and just the waste of time. But I would constantly call them out for mixed messaging, and Xbox needs exclusives. That's why this Bethesda purchase is such a great thing. When you have a console that goes so long and it lacks variety in its exclusives, at least perceived variety, then that's something you have to fix. And so people have harped on this, and Microsoft has responded. But anyways, the crazy thing was there would be a lot of these Xbox fans, or fanboys if you want to use that term, who would say, Xbox needs exclusives, and Xbox is great, but this is like its one weakness. And I would call that out as a big weakness of Xbox. And one of the things I would always call for is more single-player games. I would tell people, look, this is what Sony is doing right. This is what Sony and Nintendo are getting right, and I would call it out because as an Xbox fan, I wanted to see Xbox get better. And it was undoubtable. I don't even think that's a word. Undoubtable. I don't. Anyways, undeniable. That's what I was thinking of. It was undeniable to look and it is 100% true that major single player releases can be big hits and sell consoles. God of War did it. Uncharted did it. You had games like Nier Automata came out. I'm not even talking about Nintendo because we all know all the games Nintendo has. But Sony would consistently have these single player games come out and be big hits. Spider-Man, as much as I don't care about that, it was a thing. And Xbox fanboys would sit there and go, oh, well, we have the online, da, da, da. Yeah, that's great, but that's obviously not all you need. As much as I loved the fact that Microsoft was like the place to go for your online gaming, and it still is, really, you need those games that people, whether it's RPGs or adventure games or whatever, those games that people could just sit down, pick a controller, and play by themselves without having to go online, without having to be competitive, whatever it is they want to play, a story game. To me, it still needs to be a game, like good gameplay, but story-driven is something that is what a lot of people look for. It's what made gaming in the first place, with a lot of the RPGs and adventure games. I always would call Microsoft out on this. I would always call out Xbox fanboys who didn't want to recognize this. So this is all to set up that while I am willing to see the flaws in Xbox fans, some of them, not all of them, just some of the loud ones on Twitter, while I'm willing to see what their flaws are, I'm about to tell you exactly what I think the biggest flaws of Sony fans are. And you can see it in everything right now. since the acquisition of Bethesda. I've seen it even in my friends and coworkers that I've talked to about this. As much as I love them, and it's cool to talk gaming, it's fun to talk, console wars and have that little bit of, banter and rivalry, I still see this problem of entitlement. Xbox gamers, even, when I disagree with them, there's one thing I don't see from them in there, that is this entitlement that, for instance, it's a smaller release, but Sunset Overdrive is considered one of the best exclusives that Xbox has had in a long time. It's definitely one of the better ones that they could lay claim to this generation. And it's a favorite. It'll probably be considered a cult classic for many years among Xbox fans. Well, Sony bought Insomniac Games. They dropped $200 million on a game studio. And guess what? When that happened, you know what Xbox fans did as a whole, in general, including myself? Shit. Well, I guess I won't be getting Sunset Overdrive 2 unless I buy a PlayStation. Good move. It sucks, but that's how it is. There were probably some outliers to that, but that's the general reaction from the Xbox community. They seem to understand business and how this stuff works, and that these console makers are in it to make money. Sony sees, Insomniac Games, they've made great games for PlayStation forever. They made this fantastic game for Xbox this time. Maybe it's about time we actually buy this studio so we own them, so that anything they make from now on is ours. Ooh, that's exactly what I'm looking for right there. So, like I said, the general reaction from the Xbox community was, dang, well, there goes Sunset Overdrive 2, already hope of it, Microsoft buys Bethesda, and yes, I understand it's a quite a bit bigger acquisition, but it's the same thing. It's Microsoft sees somewhere they're lacking, sees somewhere they can get ahead of their competition, and says, all right, we have the money because we're Microsoft. We have, they have plenty of money sitting around, cash on hand, and they decide to buy Bethesda, or whatever other studios they've bought to count for this. And it's the same thing. All these companies, their purpose of existence is to make money. And they are finally responding to the fact that the way that they will make money on the Xbox platforms, whether that's Game Pass on PC and xCloud, or the Xbox consoles themselves, is these exclusive games. Is to say this is the only place you're going to be able to play Fallout, or the only place you're going to be able to play Elder Scrolls or Doom. And not only that, but it's a really diverse set of games too. Or say you liked the Dishonored games. I thought those were fantastic. Well, now anything by Arcane Studios, who made Dishonored, will only be on Xbox. But cool thing, it'll all be on Game Pass. Isn't that awesome? Or if you want to play it on your phone, as xCloud grows, you'll be able to do that. Anyways, what's amusing is the response from the Sony community. It's understandable to be upset, to an extent. We were upset when we lost Sunset Overdrive, and there's all kinds of games that come to PlayStation that you can kind of go, oh man, I wish I had access to that on Xbox. I don't, so I'm either going to have to buy a PlayStation or get over it. And for the most part, I tend to just get over it. There's usually an option of some other kind elsewhere. But many Sony fans seem to be completely and utterly incapable of these observations of, hey, this is business, this is how it goes, I can get over it, or I can buy an Xbox or something. They even games journalism, which has basically been discredited for years now, can't handle the concept that Microsoft owns these properties now, and continues to make this argument. Well, they wouldn't possibly have done this without intending to also put these games on PlayStation. They have to make their money back, and it's the most ridiculous thing ever. It's just constantly trying to find some reasoning to say Microsoft cannot have this as exclusive franchises, when That's just insane. Why on earth would you spend $7.5 billion if it wasn't going to be? And I think I've already covered that several times in my other video, but it's the same thing though. It's this mentality of Microsoft, when they do this, they're the big bad meanies, and they don't have the right, when they purchase something, to have full ownership of that thing. That thing has to be for everyone else. Sony, okay, fine. If that's the case, Sunset Overdrive was on Xbox to begin with. If they ever make a Sunset Overdrive 2, that game should really belong to the Xbox community. We're the ones that made that successful, and if they really want to make their money back, the $200 million they spent on Insomniac, well, they're just going to have to put those games on Xbox as well. Are you kidding me? That would make more sense for Sony, because Sony doesn't have very much money. But for Xbox, no, it doesn't make sense. Not $7.5 billion. You don't spend that kind of money to not sell your own platforms with your own exclusive IPs. But it's just amazing to watch these people whine and try and find every way they can to try and justify and explain. It's like a mental block. They're incapable of processing this concept that, yeah, you might have to buy an Xbox. That might have to be a thing. You may have to buy another console if you want these games. That's the way shit goes. That's life. And they just cannot process this concept. So it's like they're in denial. And it's actually quite amusing, honestly. I was watching this guy, his name is like Griffin Gaming. Honestly, reminds me a lot of Leafy. So I'm kind of questionable on the guy in that sense. Like, I swear, it sounds like Leafy. He talks like Leafy. His approach to everything is Leafy. He even plays the same games in the background Leafy would. But anyways, I like the guy's outlook. He's very much like a PC guy, one of these like, oh, console wars are stupid and all that. I don't quite agree, but I do agree that like extreme fanboyism is pretty stupid. And anyways, he's put out a couple of videos lately showing these guys and their reaction to it, and it's just mind-blowing, because I've never seen something like this from the Xbox community. It's generally kind of like, fuck, well, I guess I'll have to buy a used PlayStation, or, oh, well, I guess, I don't really need that game that much, and then you move on. There are definitely other things that I would criticize some in the Xbox community for, but this crazy sense of entitlement that comes out of the Sony fans is just not there. And I don't know, I look forward to in a year or so here when Starfield announced date is announced and it's 100% exclusive to Xbox platforms, just the melting of the minds. Same thing when eventually Elder Scrolls or something gets a release date and it's only for Xbox platforms. It's gonna be hilarious. It'll be beyond funny to watch. And this is not me, like, I don't know how to make this clear enough, but this is not me just trying to bash PlayStation or even PlayStation fans that are just like normal people who are like, that's the console they prefer, and they're into it. That's fine, just like I am with Xbox. I'm saying on these extremists, these people who do YouTube videos, who are on the Twitter sphere, in-game journalists, whatever, and this is the reaction they're having that's completely and utterly irrational. That's what I'm talking about. Those are the people that are going to be, it's going to be hilarious to watch the reaction. I think it's kind of like Griffin Gaming says, to a degree, I feel bad for some of the like regular Joe PlayStation gamers who that's their console preference, and now they probably aren't going to get those other games that they once would have. But again, that's just the way things go. That's business. That's the gaming world. It's competition, and hopefully it'll be enough to make them go, well, that Series S, it's pretty affordable, and it won't really hurt me too much to buy that. And that's exactly what Xbox is going for. So, anyways, thought it was kind of amusing, and like I said, I think it's going to be fun to watch over the next couple years as this develops, as more games out of the ZeniMax Media family land on Game Pass and come out exclusive to Xbox, and Sony fanboys just have to get used to it.